Meeting of the City of Richfield that is February 21st, 2023, and call to order. At this time, we will have open forum for anyone wanting to speak. Each speaker is to keep their comment period to 3 minutes to allow sufficient time for others. Comments are an opportunity to be addressed by the HRA. You can refer to the HRA agenda and minutes webpage for additional ways to submit comments. You may also call 612-861-9764 or email ldubois@richfieldmn.gov with questions. And then you can call into the open forum by dialing 1-415-655-0001 using webinar access code 24665187086 with the password of 1234. Is there anyone that's called in? Okay. If anyone does come in, let us know and we can come back to the open forum. Seeing there's no one in the room, I think we will, oh, was that a beep? Is that someone? Okay, I was hopeful. All right, we'll move on to approval of the minutes of the regular Housing and Redevelopment Authority meeting of January 17th, 2023. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been approved. First item on our agenda for the evening then is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, comments, commentary? All right, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda has been approved. Moving on to item number 2, and I won't read it this time. Redevelopment Urban.
Thank you, Chair Vries-Daniels, members of the HRA. The next item is the consent calendar. The consent calendar contains items which are acted upon by the HRA in one motion. Once the consent calendar has been approved, the individual items and recommended actions have also been approved, and no further HRA action on these items is necessary. Any HRA commissioner may, however, request that an item be removed from the consent calendar and placed on the regular agenda for HRA discussion and action. There is just one item on tonight's consent calendar, and that is consideration of the adoption of a resolution approving a collateral assignment of the tax increment limited revenue note series 2021 by CP2 Development LLC in favor of Bridgewater Bank, and this item is recommended for approval. Do you have any questions?
Anyone have any questions? Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent calendar has been approved. Item number 3.
Thank you, Chair Vries-Daniels, members of the HRA. The Oaks on Pleasant is a 130-unit townhome-style apartment development located at 6600 Pleasant Avenue South. The building was constructed in 2001 as part of the Urban Village Redevelopment Project, which also includes Woodlake Center, McDonald's, and the Pines Senior Development. The Urban Village project as a whole was awarded a $9.5 million tax increment financing pay-as-you-go note for the extraordinary costs associated with redevelopment. At that time, the Housing and Redevelopment Authority was required to provide a local match for TIF projects. As a condition of both the TIF and the $600,000 local match, the Oaks was required to provide 12 units of housing affordable at 70% of the area median income, and it included 3 studios, 7 one-bedrooms, and 2 three-bedroom apartments. The project was also required to contribute 15% of the tax increment to the HRA's Housing and Redevelopment Fund. The Housing Affordability Agreement requires the units to be affordable for a period of 25 years, with the provision that after 15 years, the HRA will give reasonable consideration to any request from the developer to shorten the term. The owners are asking the HRA to exercise that consideration at this time after providing 22 years of affordability. The owners are asking the HRA to release them from the affordability requirements due to increasing costs as the building ages and the challenge of finding tenants who qualify for the affordable units. Their intent is not to impact any of the existing tenants, but to be able to rent future vacant units at a market rate and without requiring tenants to meet income restrictions. The affordable rents have been well under the 70% AMI affordability limit, and the proposed market rate rents will be close to the current maximum allowed by the 70% AMI limits. You can find those specific rent levels in the attached letter of request from the owners. And I would just add, at the time the building was constructed, Richfield hadn't seen a market rate apartment building constructed since the 1980s. So the primary goal of the project at the time was to provide a contemporary apartment option with modern amenities while offering some modest affordability. And then I would also point out there is no financial impact to the HRA from this request. The pooling contribution to the Housing and Redevelopment Fund will continue through the end of the TIF district, which is December 31st, 2025. And the total estimated amount of tax increment to be contributed over that 25-year period to the fund is about $3.2 million. And I would just note that staff is just not making a specific recommendation in this matter, so we leave it up to the HRA to make the determination. The owners are here in the audience too, if you would have any questions for them or would like to give them the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to open up for questions? Yes, Commissioner Hanson.
It's stated in the document here that it won't impact existing tenants. Those who are question to the representatives here from the property. The tenants who currently are living in an affordable home, does that run like to the end of their lease, or will some provision be made to offer them some affordability once their lease runs out?
Please state your name as you come up.
My name is Duncan Susi. I'm with the management company that manages the property and also an owner of the building. As we laid out in our notice and letter to the city, currently our rents on the units that are currently if affordable are below the level. And even if we bring them up to the market rents for a unit, maybe we have a unit right next, exactly the same that's a market rate unit, that market rate that we're charging that person is below the 70% level. So in reality, our building has become naturally affordable, naturally occurring affordable housing because we haven't, we have a lot of stuff's been building around. All these new buildings are beautiful, but we certainly aren't raising our rents to their level. We're keeping it at a level that's reasonable and affordable. So we feel pretty strongly about keeping that going. A lot of our residents are people who have lived in Richfield for many, many years and wanted to stay in Richfield. That was, especially our initial residents, were a lot of Richfield residents who were able to sell their house and move somewhere that they enjoyed and felt proud of. So that's really what we have there. I mean, our townhome units, which are not part of the TIF, are certainly not maybe part of that level, but most of our flats their rents are within the 70% level.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Any questions? Yes, go ahead.
I guess my main question is for staff. They use the language that this is the proposed rent, but if they're released from this, are they under any obligation to keep the rent that they're saying now, or could they just, I mean, I understand that it's likely going to be accurate because they can't charge twice as much and get tenants, but could they just tack on another $500? Like, would we have any standing if they did so?
Yes, you're right. There would be no more restrictions on what they could charge.
Okay. And is there, to Commissioner Hanson's question, is there any restriction for those existing 70% income qualified folks?
No, they're asking to be released from that.
Okay, so including for everyone who is currently in there?
Yep.
And that's about 10 households? How many is it?
12.
12
12
households.
units. Mm-hmm.
They're all occupied now?
There's one that's not occupied at the moment, but we are trying to market that for the 1st of March, I believe, is when it's becoming available.
Okay. So I guess my question would be, if your proposed, or what you're calling your proposed rent, your new market rent is below the 70% allowable rents and the units are full, why wouldn't you just increase to higher within the allowable range and not be released from this?
Well, it becomes difficult when you're the difficulty in finding residents that qualify under the 70% and can afford the rent. it gets difficult. So that's why a lot of times those will reduce those some to find people that are willing to pay that rent with that income, because you'd like to think you're going to find that person that makes $1 underneath that 70%, but a lot of people you're renting to are probably more in the 50% or 60% level of income, and so you end up dropping those rents just to try to find a bigger group to fill those units, because they are difficult to fill.
Okay, so just to clarify with one of your examples, it says the 2-bedroom 70% allowable rent is $18.48, but you're saying if you went and advertised that with the income restriction, you likely wouldn't get any candidates. It has to be lower for somebody at that income level to actually want to rent it?
It just has to be a little bit lower to find the right tenant.
Yep.
Like I said, to find that perfect person who's making that enough income to be just under the 70% level, it gets difficult. So you do end up dropping that rent just so you can find a reasonable amount of people that could get into that unit, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? I have a couple questions. So you said 11 of them are filled, one's coming up. As I look on your website of available listings and available apartments or units available, they're already higher than what the new market rent or 70% allowable is. There's a wide range, it looks like.
Yep.
And none of them talk about income restrictions as part of this. And so if you are having trouble filling that, is that, what are you doing to help fill those and spread the word that they are available to people?
Yep, typically what we're going to advertise on your internet listing services like apartments.com, places like that will have some of that language in there. You do work a little bit through Housing Link, which is more for subsidized housing. This is more just low to moderate income housing, but you can sometimes find tenants through that way as well. And the other place we do a lot of marketing is through Facebook Marketplace, things like that, social media, where we'll find people, when we're looking for specific units. That's the one way that we'll advertise as well.
And I appreciate that you aren't trying to remove people who are already in here, right? Mm-hmm. But nothing is stopping you, though, from not renewing their lease. And so would it be fair to say that when those other 11 leases come up, and I assume they're yearly leases at most, that they will not have a place here getting that income restricted housing?
Like you said, we're asking for the waiver to be for anyone coming new. That would be our pledge, is that if someone did decide to move out that's in one of those affordable units, that, again, we would like to move that rent up to what we would consider the market for that type of unit, which again is still below that 70% level. It's not our intention to push anybody out. We have no intention of doing that. Our pledge is that the people who are currently there as affordable housing, they're just going to get the normal rent increase that we've given them in the past, whatever that might be. If rents are going up faster, that might be a little bit more than normal. More. It's not like a certain amount every year, and we don't necessarily. If we decide the rents are going to go, maybe $100 more this year for that market. For most of our renewals for our company, we may do a $50 rent increase. We don't go all the way up to the new market rate. So we have a lot of people in our building living in a 2-bedroom unit, a 2-bedroom, G-style unit, where the market there might be $1,500, but they moved in 4 years ago, and they're still maybe only paying $1,350 for that unit, because we haven't given, when we say the market rent goes up $100, that doesn't mean that our renewals go up $100. Our goal is to keep good residents. Our goal is to provide good housing to people, and we're not there to push people out when our market may go up. A lot of that has happened in Richfield with all the new building, but it's not our intention to push anybody out. We want good residents. It costs us a lot to turn a unit, so we'd rather keep good residents there. So we try to give enough of a renewal that it helps us cover the additional costs that we're incurring with utilities and taxes and all that, but not enough that we're just going to push people out just so we can try to maximize rent.
Thanks. That's all my questions. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Oh.
One other question for staff, just to clarify the point from the staff report. So you mentioned comparing what was agreed to in 2000 or 2001 with the current policy, and if I understand it correctly, the current policy would be they could have done the 15% that they are doing, and they wouldn't have had to provide any affordable units. Is that right?
Correct. We do offer that option right now, that you could just contribute to the Housing and Redevelopment Fund. We are pushing every development to try to go beyond that, but the policy as written would.
Okay. But so they are sort of above the bare minimum as if this were a new development today.
The minimum, but then, I mean, we typically don't look at 70% AMI anymore.
Yeah.
60% is really what we're looking for, or lower, quite a bit lower, right? But we know that there's a financial cost to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Yes,
Do
go
you want a
ahead.
motion?
Yeah.
So I will move to approve the reduction of affordability from 25 to 22 years for the Oaks on Pleasant and authorize the acting chair and executive director to execute a release of the affordable housing agreement.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Well, to speak to it, as Commissioner Hayford O'Leary brought up, our policy now would have had them paying the 15%, and that's going to continue on. So they would be comparable to what currently people are doing. But the fact that this basically is creating naturally occurring affordable housing and it's not going to spike the rents seems to me that it's reasonable, and we want them to be able to keep the upkeep, to keep the buildings in good repair. So I think it's a reasonable request. They could have asked for this after 15 years and they waited till 22. So I think that they're following the spirit of the agreement.
Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
I think I generally agree with Commissioner Seppel's reasoning, in that this is sort of above the standard it has been for 22 years of what we would expect from a new development. And even though the units are not the right AMI, it's the 15% plus the units that they've done. I feel a little bit skeptical of the market rents that they're promising, because it's a unenforceable promise versus an agreement that it's replacing. But even if it weren't for that promise, we still have the reasoning that they have provided this for 22 years. And I think, Commissioner Seppel, you're right that they could have asked as soon as possible, and instead they did wait for unusual conditions where truly inflation got out of control. So I think for that reason, I support it.
Anyone else? As I look at this, I think of the 11 or 12 people who already live there, and I think, well, yes, that has been following the agreement and maybe more of what we would have today. I think we are so limited on these affordable units, and especially, some of the 2-bedroom, and looking at the rates that are already being listed there, I would like to continue the agreement through 2025, so I'm not supportive of this. If there's any other commentary or questions, otherwise we will call for a vote. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion passes. Thank you for coming. All right, next agenda item. I gotta get back up here. Number 4, HR discussion items. Is there any HR discussion items? Yes, Commissioner Hanson.
Well, this is more of a Economic Development Authority item, but since we're not meeting tonight, I'll touch upon it tonight. I attended the meeting hosted by our consultant, John Stark, of his company Enduring Cities, with local business owners. And it was an interesting meeting. There was a range of business owners there, from people who have brick and mortar locations to people who are working out of their home, people who have just started, to people who have been in business for more long-term, 10-plus years. Overall, they were fairly complimentary about the business environment in Richfield. The one comment they had is they thought that it'd be nice if it was more of a central location where they could get all the information for all the permits and all the licensing and all the regulations that would impact their business. They felt a little bit that's a little bit scattered, and that they're on a little bit of a kind of a hunting trip to find all that information. But overall, the comments were very flattering about that we have a good business environment here in Richfield, and people enjoyed the meeting and suggested that they gather again to kind of further collaboration.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else? Yes.
I have a request for the future. I know before COVID, there were a number of things that were done, like home tours and things like that. And then we kind of put everything on hold because of COVID. Can you, at some future meeting, tell us what's going to be coming up and if any of that is going to be started up again? Thank you.
Sounded like you wanted me to come back to you with that, or do you want to just, I mean, I can answer just,
If you know the answer now, that's fine.
the answer is that, we still need to discuss and figure out. We would like to bring a home tour back in some form. I think we talked about it last year and just things felt too uncertain. We have to start planning several months in advance. So we talked about doing it in the spring, but we've started out the year so busy that our housing specialists haven't had time to work on marketing. So my hope is that we will bring that back. We did manage a realtor workshop virtually, but my hope also would be to have that happen in person. The limitation there is that the Association of Realtors was understaffed and wasn't able to help us, and that's really key to having those credits. So those are the kind of the two main things that we'll talking about. But
Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? All right, number 5, Executive Director's Report.
right, well, following up with Gordon's subject, I will say that we had posted for our Economic Development Manager, and that closed a week or so ago, and we had several promising candidates, and so we have interviews scheduled for next week. So fingers crossed that they all hang around and are, we end up with a good candidate. So that was exciting. And then just a heads up for March, we will be scheduling a work session prior to the HRA meeting. And the 2 items on the agenda will be to talk about the Mathwig EcoSmart property. We had a request for information published out there. I don't think we got quite the response we were hoping for, but we will still have a workshop in March to talk about next steps with that property. And then the second thing is that we've had some interest in the what we call the old El Jalapeno site, which is, I think, 1420 East 66th Street next to the Frenchman's. So we were going to bring that to you, sort of get some initial feedback from you on that potential proposal. So that's the end of the report.
That's exciting. Thank you. All right. Item number 6, claims. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Claims are approved. At this time, we'll call for adjournment. Thank you, everyone. Drive safe home.